And there's really two separate things going on with the CFP right now. No decisions were made on Tuesday, but there's a talk for 2025 and changes to make. There's talk for 2026 and beyond changes to make. So just 2025, currently the playoff is set to be what it was this year. 4 champions get a first round bye, the whole same deal. But
people did not do that.
Well, I would disagree. I think most people did like that, and the ratings showed out.
But people don't like the idea of Boise State and Arizona State getting buys. People
depends who you're talking about. I liked it. Boise State fans liked it.
Most people that looked at the bracket said that doesn't really make sense, even if they understood how we got there.
Anyway, the whole point of it is that conference champions get a bye. That's the idea. But the Big Ten and the SEC said last week at their meeting in New Orleans, we would rather have straight seeding where your top 5 conference champions are guaranteed a spot, but everybody is seeded essentially in the order of the committee's rankings. That needs unanimous approval to happen. So why would the ACC, Big 12, and Group of 5 agree to that? There's really no reason to, and I've been skeptical of any change happening because of that. So I asked Brett Yormark, Jim Phillips, some Group of 5 ADs, like, is that a no for you guys? And they didn't rule it out. They said, we're still talking about it. We want some more information from the CFP when we get back together next month to talk about it. So what could be those things that would cause the ACC, Big 12, G5 to maybe give up those auto bids, those first round buys for next year? Well, it might be money, because if you get a first round buy, you're getting $8 million because you're getting $4 million for advancing and $4 million for playing in the next round. Well, what if maybe you guaranteed that money toward the conference champions regardless of the bye? The commissioners are like, maybe. They got to go talk to their schools about it and see how they feel about it. But it still feels unlikely anything changes for this year, but it is more possible than I thought it was coming into this meeting. What do you seem to like that idea?
Yeah, I'm okay with straight seeding. I can you at least admit though, Chris, that on its face, it did seem silly to have Penn State go into the second round and be a double-digit favorite against the Boise State team they got to bye. Texas being a big favorite against a Arizona State team they got to bye. Just as you're looking at it, it doesn't seem like it makes sense. Can you at least get me there?
No, but nothing in college football has ever made sense. We just pick who plays in half of these tournaments anyway. And I said this to Heather. No, I said this to one of the guys who was waiting outside the meeting, someone who works with the CFP. If Arizona State had beaten Texas, that would have changed a lot of narratives about everything. If they make that fourth down stop and it's like, oh, the Big 12 champ who was ranked very low beat this team, this match. Instead, all the teams that got buys lost. And it's like, well, everything we thought about the playoff isn't really happening. But let me just ask you this. If you're a Big 12 school, if you're in Arizona State and you just got a first round bye despite finishing ranked 10th or 11th or wherever they were.
I'm holding on to it for dear life.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes. It seems crazy to me that they would even entertain the fact that I'm with you. It doesn't really make sense because you're probably only getting this for one more year where you can have this sort of advantageous situation. So,
correct.
Because I would think most years, even though it's 1 year, it's a small sample size. Most years, the Big 12 champion is probably going to be ranked below, probably not as good of a team as like the third or fourth, SEC team or Big 10 team, which we kind of saw this year. So
we don't need to rehash this argument we always have, but if they had done that this year, 1, 2, 3, and 4 were all Big 10 and SEC teams, in which case, why have the conference championship games? That's what they're still trying to, that's the problem, I think, with straight seeding, that they're still trying to work out. But it plays into 26, because in 2026, the Big 10 and SEC take control of what happens to the playoff. Not 100% control, but last year when all the conferences in Notre Dame agreed to continue the playoff from 26 to 2031, it gave the Big 10 and SEC a lot of power. So the thought process is, hey, hold on to that bye for your dear life, because the next year the Big 10's going to brush you to the side anyway and change the playoff however they want. But Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, made an interesting comment in that he said, you don't want 2025 and 2026 to feel bifurcated. You don't want two completely different playoffs here from 1 year to the next. So, and Jim Phillips kind of agreed, because I asked these guys straight up. I was like, is there anything that would cause you to give up this first round bye? And they were like, well, we're not ruling it out yet. And yes, we have to think about our constituents. We also have to think about the playoff as a whole. So they are more open to it than I thought they would be. So we'll probably find out over the next month if that ends up happening. As far as 2026, expansion to 14 and 16, auto bids, they're not that far down that yet, but they are talking about the auto bids, the 4-4-2-2-1-1 thing that is out there because we all know about it. And I can tell you, nobody outside of the Big Ten and the SEC likes it, like at all. Either on the record, off the record, whatever. Everybody, well, they don't really want to say it on the record, but they'll say it off the record that or anonymously that they don't like it. The quotes are already out there, So how do you feel about this whole playoff stuff and the idea that we're changing it every single year and what these changes could be?
I mean, I don't think the change is good for the sport. I mean, you know where I'm at on this, Chris. Like, I would like to see 8. I don't like this becoming. I think with 14 and 16, you are knocking on the door of hurting the regular season, which you don't want. And like, I know all the reasons why we can't have 8, but how you get there, I think is sort of just to me. I don't think it's that important. I would like to see that. How you do in the regular season means you are going to be protected in the playoff bracket, whether that means you're guaranteed a home game or getting a bye. I think that's how you incentivize the regular season, and you don't have people sitting guys out. I've been saying this, obviously, for since conference championship week. Conference championship in general have to be reimagined as is. It's a relic of a past world of college football that we don't need to have. So I'm realistic in that I'm not going to just be screaming while we're being dragged into the future. Like, I know this is where it's going. So let's make the best version of what we have. And to me, the best version of what we're going to have in 14 and 16 is you should be doing everything in your power to get one of those top 4 seeds. And it should be rewarding the best teams in the sport, regardless of what conference that they're in. So I think that's where we're at.
Yeah. One last thing I would say on the playoff part. It's important to remember that the auto bids and the idea of the Big Ten and the SEC get more is not just about the playoff. The idea is it's a couple of steps that leads to a play-in tournament over conference championship weekend, maybe 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5 and something like that. And then you have some extra games that if you're the Big Ten, you can sell to an Amazon or whoever. You're creating new television games to sell. That's what the NBA play-in tournament was. That's what the NFL expansion to the season is. It's what all these leagues are trying to do right now is find more games to sell to TV because these things are so valuable. But I am worried that when you get down to 6th and 7th place teams, you got teams that don't deserve to be in the playoff conversation. And that's when you start to hurt the regular season. So we'll see. The next meeting is sometime late next month, and they have a big meeting in April, the CFP does. But if we're getting to a place where it's championship week and we got a 4-loss team and a 3-loss team playing and the winner goes to the playoff, that's where I'm like, we maybe stepped through a looking glass here that I don't know that we want to be through. That's what I'm worried about. So we'll keep an eye on that. We're going to talk about that, obviously, as we learn more and more about what the future of the sport's going to look like. It's going to be changing. This is the last year of 12, whether it's 14 or 16. Buckle up.